Hello everyone, DonTheCrown here, and today I want to talk about Torchlight Infinite from a Path of Exile 1 or 2 veterans kind of like viewpoint. This is the video that I wish existed when I first started playing the game, because there are a few things that are a little bit confusing and maybe hard to keep track of, and we're just going to explain a whole bunch of the stuff. Character creation is very different in this game, because unlike in PoE, where you pick your character and then later decide on what your Ascendancy choice is going to be, in this game, you are deciding that right away. So for example, Selena here is the new champion. She only has one version of herself. So if you want to play Selena, you just play Selena. However, if you want to play Rayhan, there is a Rayhan 1 and a Rayhan 2. And they are different from one another in a big way. Much in the same way the difference between like a gladiator and a champion would be, even though they're both duelists in PoE 1. And so this is Rayhan Seething Silhouettes, whereas this is Rayhan Anger. Rayhan Anger is all about making like explosions pop off of himself. You can click this little details button right over here to see all of their ascendancy points and stuff, and like what they actually do and what they have access to. Whereas Rayhan 2 is all about getting this little backpack totem thing to kind of pop out and start killing enemies for you, which is pretty fun. Now, when I say Rayhan 1 or Rayhan 2, basically that is the community nomenclature, like how they call the different classes, and these are ordered in the number of their release date. However, you don't have to memorize any of that. You don't have to worry about that, because in the character picker, it's already sorted for you. So Carino 1, for example, is this guy. He's the first Carino. Then we have Carino 2, Carino 3. And so they all have a little bit of a different flair and flavor to them. You can check out the details thing to see what they're all about. Now, all of these characters that you see here are going to be free to play for the upcoming season here, Arcana. However, Iris is the character that is getting a new version of herself in. So Iris 2, and this will only be accessible if you purchase the Battle Pass. Now, the next thing that's going to kind of happen once you create your character is you're going to go through the campaign of leveling. I know a lot of people kind of want to know how long that's going to be. And I would say if you're really taking your time, like reading stuff, watching all the cutscenes and stuff, it might take you somewhere like 4 to 6 hours potentially, especially if you're not like really following a build guide. However, you don't really need to follow a build guide right away. You can always respec all the way up to level 90 for free. There's no cost associated with it. And it is just really quite easy for you to kind of like blast through and get stuff. Now, one thing I do want to point out is in the campaign, you're eventually going to find this thing called a treasure trove. You're going to have a quest to do it. There will be like a guy standing next to a giant golden portal. When you go through and you clear the treasure trove, you will get a guaranteed unique item, which is legendary in this game. And you'll get the opportunity to either leave the treasure trove through the red portal or challenge again. What you want to do typically is challenge again a couple of times. And people will typically do this until they gain like 5 to 8 levels, kind of depending on their level versus the zone. And so they want to get like probably around like 8 to 10 levels over the zone. So you can pretty much just run through the remainder of the campaign to the next treasure trove, level up there again. And the reason you do this is simply because it has higher density of enemies and guaranteed legendary for you to get. And some of these can be pretty darn impactful. However, you will be able to see like the list of legendaries that could potentially drop. I wouldn't necessarily farm one of these overly long looking for a legendary, because sometimes the weightings are weighted towards one legendary to be like 9 times out of 10 type of thing. And so, yeah, I would just do these mostly for experience and maybe a lucky legendary as you go. Now, the next thing that you're going to kind of notice as you're going through and leveling up is that you're not going to have access to all of your skills right away. In fact, your skills and slots for the skills are going to unlock as you level up. You unlock like your first like a main skill you have like right off the bat, and then you'll get a healing potion skill as well, and then you unlock like a movement skill, and then a buff, and then maybe another buff, and you start getting auras and stuff as you go. And you will be able to just go and purchase any of the skills that are unlocked at that particular level. There's really just like a ton of skills you can get. And for the most part, there's no real limitations on like stat or anything for using stuff. However, some of the attack skills require that you use specific weapons. So like Thunder Slash here requires swords, axes, or hammers, which I don't have. So that little red weapon thing tells me that I can't use this weapon. If you want to sort, there's a sorting thing over here, and there is no cost at all for you to purchase these skills and try them out if you want to. They're just going to take up space in your inventory that you might have to clear out later. But for the most part, you can just switch stuff around at demand. So if I'm like, I want to try out Shackles of Malice, I can go and equip that in. Now, some supports might not work with this, but when you go to purchase supports, it will only try to sell you supports that will actually work with the skill. So that is completely fine. You can't really make a big mistake here. Now, you might notice in a lot of build guides, supports that have these little stars under them. These are somewhat new to the game, and they are supports that are specific for a skill. So Icebound Beam has these 2 supports, and then 2 other ones. They only go in the 5th and 3rd slots around the circle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These come from the Frozen Canvas gameplay, which is something we'll talk about later, but you can probably just buy these off of the auction house if you're really looking for them. There's also another type of support that only comes from a different gameplay mechanic called Mistville, and we can get them here. They're called activation mediums, and these are kind of like the automation stuff. So like use a skill whenever you're near a boss and it just spams it nonstop type of thing, or activate it near an elite. Things like this are called activation mediums. They may have noticed that some of my skills have more supports. Pretty much these are kind of like having additional links like in PoE 1 or 2. And the way that you get this is through energy. And energy allows you to assign points to or from skills. So I can turn off particular nodes or turn them on if I have enough energy. Energy is acquired by, you get 1 energy per level, and then you do get energy from some gear once you get towards the end of the campaign. And energy on gear will scale up all the way to the point where hats will have 61 energy, same with gloves and boots. Chest armors and 2-handed weapons will go up to 122, and 1-handed weapons will also be 61. And if you have like an item that has low energy, you can actually go to this vendor over here, Mr. Mod, and go to Gear Empowerment, and you can put an item in here and roll the energy. And so it's going to be completely random. And supposedly they're lowering the cost of this next season, but if I just keep spamming it, it won't let me spam past the max. Now, I'm going to get into gearing later on the video, but let's talk about Endgame a little bit. So once you finish the campaign, you're going to find yourself back here at Ember's Rest. You have a quest to talk to Zack the Hunter. And Zack the Hunter is pretty much going to be the rest of all of the quests that you do. And his quests are going to be to basically go out and do tiers of maps in specific places to unlock the boss for the region. And it's going to be relatively easy for you to follow along once you kind of know what's happening. So his first quest is going to be, he's going to give you a whole bunch of beacons. And these beacons are basically the maps for your character. And they have a type. So Glacial Abyss is like a region. And we'll show you those in a second. And then Time Mark 1 tells you the difficulty these are for. So these are like a tier 1 map, for example, that works in Glacial Abyss. So when I walk up to this thing here, I'll be able to see all the different regions that we have accessible. So Glacial Abyss, Blistering Lava, Steel Forge, Thunder Waste, Voidland. In the center here is like the ultimate pinnacle boss. And this great void thing behind my head is all of the other like seasonal mechanic pinnacle bosses. And you can like preview what their loot is and everything. And we might get into those in a different video. In the bottom left-hand corner is like where we kind of control what difficulty we're on. So we're going to start off here in Time Mark 1. So we're going to switch down there. And then if we go to Glacial Abyss, I can see on Time Mark 1, we basically have maps that we can potentially choose. And right now I only have one that has an active card that I can select. That's because I actively already picked one. But if I went up here to Blistering Lava, for example, you can see that there are these, they're kind of like grayed out because I don't have a beacon for these. But there are 3 different options for maps. And what these are kind of like bonus cards. They're going to be affecting your next couple of maps. So for here, for example, Anger Weapon is going to make it so that bosses drop 0 to 1 additional weapons used for the recommended for beginners build. These weapons have at least 2 tier 5 affixes. Also gives me more drop quantity. Typically, you always want to chase a card because it does give you more drop quantity, which is highly desirable. And so you just pick anything that you want and just go and do those maps. And so this one here, we've already done one of the maps, and we can just go and do the next one here. And what this will do is it will progress this meter here in the middle and also give me a little bit extra rewards for completing the map. So let's blast through this real quick. My character is incredibly overtuned for this. So like my character basically can do this to endgame maps. And this is like the start. It's like a tier 1 map. So pretty much just roll through, killing enemies. And realistically, like you want to kind of be going fast in most maps. One of my good videos about farming is basically that if you're feeling slower, you probably need to fix your gear and you want to be going pretty fast. Maybe not this fast, but you want to be going pretty fast most of the time. And then now that I finished this map, one of the things it gave me for loot, star shards. And star shards are basically keys to the bosses of the zone. And so you can kind of think of these as like shaper watchers or something. But as you can see here in the middle, now I have the ability to access this boss fight. And when I go into this boss fight, I can kind of see some of the loot that's going to drop. There's an additional button over here that can show more of the drops here. And this is always going to be the same boss fight. It's going to be a little bit more difficult the higher up you go, but it's always going to be the same Coldest Tracer Freezing Vortex guy. Now, I'm just going to zap him real quick. And we didn't get anything special. He did drop a legendary and a whole bunch of other gear, but he can drop some pretty fancy gear as well. Just didn't get lucky this time. And that would be the completion of my very first quest here. I'd go talk to Zach the Hunter, and then he would tell me to go and do Blistering Lava on Time Mark 2. And then from there, we'd end up going and doing, I believe, Glacial Blistering on Time Mark 2, and then we're doing Glacial Blistering on Time Mark 3 with Steel Forge Time Mark 3, and you kind of just work your way up to Time Mark 7. And that's pretty much how the early mapping kind of works. For the most part, you just want to pick the cards that are most appealing to you. So if I'm looking at these, like the weapons, I think are really, really good, especially early on. Now, some of these are going to make it so that zones are affected by different league mechanics or give you the ability to get more resources and stuff. And you can see all of the cards that are potentially available to you by clicking a button that is behind me. Let's move out of the way. And these are all of the different cards that are currently available to my Atlas setup. You do have the ability to add cards to this from speccing into certain things, which we can talk about here in a second. But you really want to chase stuff that is giving you like more resources or more monsters or better weapons. And these cards will actually improve as you go up in difficulty. More and more stuff will kind of unlock for you. So if I go here now, I can see that there are things like this stage has a lot of mystery chests, for example. And the rarity system in the game is rainbow at the top, then red, which I don't think there's any map cards for that, orange for legendary, purple, and then blue. And so maybe that's kind of important to know. Now, as you progress through the Atlas, basically, you're going to earn these star talents. These are effectively your Atlas passive points, and you earn them for defeating like the Watchers, which is the end boss here, or you earn them for doing other stuff, basically. And you can track all of them here. It's very easy to see which ones you're missing, and you can even look at the total and be like, which zones am I missing points from? And what you use these for is this big void chart. And the void chart is pretty much your Atlas passives for Torchlight Infinite. And so you're going to end up putting points into these. Don't worry, it might be a little bit complicated, but you will earn respec points for these as you go. And you won't be able to put points into everything right off the bat. Now, the one that I recommend new players putting a lot of points into relatively early is the Commodities Talent Constellation. This is going to give you nice things like Winding Keys, which are the respec resource for the Atlas passives. Kind of give you a little bit more wiggle room. I tend to put like at least 1 point into this just so bosses have a chance to give me some Winding Keys. This is probably not super duper necessary, but if you're, it's not a bad idea either. Going getting Netherrealm Resonance also helps as well. This pretty much allows you to add modifiers to your maps, which is something I forgot to mention. We'll go back to that in a second. You can also go around and get this Flame Sand stuff pretty early on. This can be relatively nice for you. Same for Embers as well, just giving you more currency. This nodes here that we have for star shards, all of these only benefit you once you're at time mark 7 or above, so not necessarily good. Even these like mystery chests can be quite beneficial as well, just give you a little bit more loot. Energy cores, these help you re-roll the energy on gear. This can be pretty good. Over here, elixirs of oblivion give you like ability basically at a respec point. I don't think this is all that important. And this section all gives you more drop quantity and more monsters on the map, which is nice, but not necessarily super important while you're leveling. So I'd say most of this stuff down here is kind of nice early on, especially if you don't know what to pick. You can also go into this beacon tree here, and this gives you the ability to get better or higher level beacons, which is also pretty nice as well. And then down here, there's a whole bunch of different league mechanics. I'm probably going to do a separate league mechanic video. And I have made videos in the past that talk about like void chart, specific strategies and stuff. So I'm not going to get into that too much. Just know there's quite a big system here with different ways for you to customize your end game grind. Now, the next thing I want to mention though is going back is the adding of modifiers to this. So as you go through the zones, you're going to unlock the ability to add modifiers to the map. And so we can click here, we can see that we're adding more and more mods to the map, and it has like a certain limit to it. And this will be on every single map in that set. So if I like every single map on this jealous card is going to have all of those mods that I just rolled on it, and I can re-roll these a couple of times if I get something that is bad, like protective dome is something I don't really like, and so I might like re-roll this. But if you re-roll too many times, you won't be able to re-roll until you actually get until you actually complete one of the maps. You can also add compasses, which will add more enemies or add different seasonal effects to them. And these are just like kind of like scarabs from PoE. And you can make it so that these automatically reuse whatever you used last time. So you don't have to like add them every single time. As long as you have them in your bags, you'll be able to continuously add them. Next, let's talk about gearing real quick. So gearing in this game is a little bit different than maybe some other ARPGs in that there's kind of like very delineated steps that you should kind of be working your gear through. So when you're first are doing low tier maps, you are going to be getting like low tier items. Just pick up something here. And these low tier items, when you go to craft them, just left click on it, click on the anvil here. They will be able to get highest tier, tier 5, right? But that will eventually go up until you get to item level 82, which can get tier 2. And all of the items that from tier 2 to tier 5 can basically be crafted extremely cheaply. We can see here we're using flame sand and fine embers. This is kind of the equivalent of crafting with alterations and augmentations. These are really, really cheap, and it's very, very easy to get the things that you want. So let's say all my gloves, I'm like, ooh, all of these stats look great, except this intelligence, I really want life. I'm just going to re-roll this. Oh, look, I got life very first try. Okay, so now for the glove here, I want dexterity. This is an advanced mod. It costs a little bit more to roll these. So I'm just going to, click this a couple of times. Ooh, this isn't what I want. Let's craft again. And we're just going to keep going here. And maybe I'm like, ooh, lightning damage to attacks or spells is fine. I can click confirm to lock that in. Or I can just be like, nah, I'm going to stick with dexterity. Then you can always have 2 advanced affixes on an item and the rest basic affixes. Later on, you'll unlock ultimate affixes. But early on, you pretty much just want to continuously kind of move your gear forward a little bit. I probably wouldn't really recommend going whole hog on a early piece of gear, unless it's a weapon, until you can get to the tier 2 modifiers. And then you pretty much want to get a gear that is all perfect tier 2s. So you can just like very systematically roll for it. Heck, you can even go and autocraft for it. So let's say like, I'm like, hey, I really want this to be fire resistance, tier 5. I'm just going to auto craft until it happens, or I run out of materials here and I run out of materials there. But like this stuff here is pretty freaking common to get. And so you're going to basically get to the point where you're all tier 2. That should be like your first major gearing goal. And then you're going to kind of graduate to getting gear that has all tier 1s. And the reason you kind of want to hit all tier 2 is because going up to tier 1s requires that you use Flame Elementium to start crafting, and it costs more embers here as well, costs a lot more. You can think of these as like costing Exalts or Chaos Orbs, depending on PoE 2 or PoE 1. So it's a lot more expensive to craft on compared to basically crafting with like dust. And so you really want to go tier 2, and then tier 1, and then after that, there's another tier above it with tier 0. And tier 0s cost a whole lot more to go for. This needs to be on an item level 100 piece of gear, and it costs about the same to roll for these modifiers. However, I believe that there are more range, there's a larger range, so it's harder to hit tier 1s than it was to hit the tier 2s here. Whereas on the lower tier stuff, like hitting the tier 1s is a lot more common, 3 times more common actually right now. And so hitting these tier 1s on a item level 100 is going to be way more expensive. And so you really want to wait until later on to go for any of these. And then upgrading a tier 1 to a tier 0 requires a lot of resources. So yeah, this is something that's like very much end game, and you'll be earning a lot more resources as you progress through the game. Now, I do want to point out that one of the biggest mistakes I see new players make is that they completely neglect 3 different spots of their itemization. Because I think it is very, very easy for people to see all of the gear here, be like, this is my gear. No, there's 3 more spots where you actually have gear. One is on your passive skill tree. If you click this button down here, the statue of the new god, these are slates. These are like Tetris pieces, and these have like different stats and stuff on them. And at first, the first slates you find aren't really going to be all that great. However, you can get some slates that have some insane stats on them, like legendary nodes from passive trees, and you can stack these up quite efficiently. Unless it says max divinity effect 1, then you can only have 1 slate with it. But you really want to make sure that your slates are pretty good. And typically around the time we're going from like tier 1 to tier 0, you really want to make sure your slates are a lot better. And I see a lot of people just forgetting that this whole section exists. And once again, you also want to make sure that you've like filled out most of your passive tree by this point. Like once you get to level 90, you can't respec for free, but it's still pretty darn cheap. I have like 100 respecs right now. And make sure you're picking the top node up here, which is kind of like the big node for the tree, but you can kind of just like work your way over. Let's talk about the passive tree actually real quick. So when you first pick one of these trees, it's pretty much going to be like, are you doing fire attacks? Are you doing like speed lightning? Are you doing spell cold? Are you doing physical damage? Are you doing erosion damage? Or are you doing minions? You pick one of these, you're going to get locked into this section. You can do Goddess of Knowledge, and then your second sub tree is always going to be from the same god, whereas your third tree can be from any god. And if you're following a build guide, it's probably going to be like very easy to follow along with this. However, like this can be a little bit overwhelming your first time. So this is like one of the reasons why I recommend like looking to see what other people are doing, which we can talk about here in a second. But I do want to finish the gearing part here. So the other 2 spots that people forget about is if we press K here for skills, is soul candles. These do come from League Mechanic, the City of Eternum, and you will automatically have 1 soul candle, and I'll do a video about how to unlock your second one. But these can give you some absolutely bonkers stats that even like give you an additional support for your main skill, for example, which is just kind of ridiculous. And so it's really, really important for you to remember to do that. Now, the third spot that you have gear is actually on your hero traits. So they changed this past seasons so that if you press H to pop this up, we can see that when we were selecting basically our hero ascendancy points, we can put these things in here, and having good stats on this is pretty important. And so leveling this up helps a lot, and getting good things here by crafting on them does help a lot too. So you want to make sure that you're always kind of like keeping an eye out either on the market or for drops from Pirate Mechanic for these memories in order to try to juice them up. As we can see here, with this one leveled up, I get +2 to my trait level. So this makes this like a multiplicative more power. So make sure you remember to gear up your slates, your candles, and your hero memories as well. Now, 2 more things I want to talk about is how to look and see what other people are doing. We're going to click the flame up here, and we're going to go, oh, I'm not in town. So I think you need to be in town for this one. we click the flame, we're going to hero rankings. I've bound this to F7, but I can go and see like what all of the hero rankings are. This is sorted by level. So these aren't necessarily the best damage dealing enemies or people. These are the people that are doing, you know, the most, you know, XP. And we can go and sort by like day 1, day 2, and we can just really see like kind of the progression of different characters and what they were doing and like how the leveling process has gone for them. And we can just like even go and like look at, hey, what gear was this person using at this time? This is like a direct snapshot of this person. And wow, they got incredibly lucky. But you can see like just whatever gear that they were using. We can see like this guy's slates are all pretty rough, which is pretty much to be expected early on. We can see that he has a whole bunch of tier 2 gear like expected. And then as we go through forth like to tier day 4 here, we'll probably look at the same guy once again. And we can see that he's still wearing some of the same gear, but he's replaced his weapon to be like an all tier 1 staff. Which, you know, is pretty darn good. All tier 1 ring, all tier 1 hat. And then, yeah, so this is pretty much what this guy's gear looked like. So we can kind of just pay attention to what's going on. The other thing we can do is if we click this button up here in the top right, this one, it gives us the boss conquest and supreme showdown. Both of these have ladders that we can go and look at any of the classes. This is going to be like live up to date. A lot of these characters sometimes will not allow you to look at their character, or like, you know, some of these guys have deleted all their gear by now. You know, maybe a little bit better idea of what to do for the boss conquest. Same thing with the Supreme Showdown. There's a rankings button at the top right, and we can see all of the people here that have gone through and done this. So we can see like this DonTheCrown Mur, or we can go look at like Civi or Kithik, all of their different characters and stuff. Kind of just get an idea of what they're doing and maybe like adjust my build a little bit. Now, last thing I want to talk about is your daily login stuff and banners specifically. So when you log in for the day, there is going to be this thing here, Hunter Supply under pack in the shop. This is just a free little bit of Jagged Primocryst, and Jagged Primocryst is kind of the free to play currency. And that is going to allow you to do some pulls on some banners, and also allows you to expand your inventory by clicking this button here. I've expanded mine out to the point where it costs 140 to expand my inventory for this slot. I don't really feel like I need any more than that. I feel like I have a decent size inventory, but you can go farther. You can also go and expand your stashes if you really feel like it using this Jagged Primocryst. So they do give you quite a bit for your first time playing. I recommend doing that. So you get free Jagged every single day from the pack. You also can go and click the megaphone up here, and then I believe it's under gifts. You can do the daily login, and sometimes there are multiple login banners to click on. So we can see we get more Jagged tomorrow, assuming it doesn't reset on me. And then the last thing we can go do is boons. And so boons are basically the like gacha banners of the game. This is how you're going to get like your cosmetics or some of the cosmetics. And this is how you're also going to go and get your pack spirits, which give you a little bit of extra power. And typically what I recommend doing is there is going to be this old friendship banner is a free banner that you get one pull on every day. You can actually get pack spirits from this. I did get a pack spirit today and yesterday from this, which is pretty nice. And then the next banner that I recommend, but it is a banner for brand new players where you get guaranteed legendary. I think it's after 30 or 50 pulls, and that's just pretty nice. You can get basically any of the legendaries, including the ultra rare chalk pet. Now, the resources you use for this is pack spirit crystal, and each of these pack spirit crystal things is going to cost you 160 jagged, and you can convert the Primocryst, which is the paid currency, into jagged, into the pack spirit crystals. It just kind of does it automatically. If I did this, it says you need 10 more pack spirit crystals, redeem our 1600 jagged Primocryst. If I confirm this, it would start converting stuff down. The other thing I'd recommend doing is pulling on the pack spirit banner here for the seasonal pet. These always have a little bit better odds. Right now you get 10 pulls for the cost of 8, and this typically helps boost the league mechanic, and you're going to get a whole mess of free pulls just from playing the game and doing your path of progression. Likewise, there'll be like a battle pack spirit. Waves FM, I believe, is the one for this season. This was really designed to help you do more max channel snacks, which maybe wasn't very good this season. However, there'll be a lot of different pets and stuff. There's also this project battle pack spirit that lets you select which pack spirit you want to potentially have better odds on. And you can pretty much pick most of these here and give you like a 50-50 basically to pull this one out of the pool with these crystals. As you can see, I'm stocking up stuff for the future here because I want to pull more of the next seasonal pack spirit. But that's pretty much it. There's like a lot of stuff there to kind of unpack. Probably do a specific video talking about like league strategies, but you can kind of go and look at my Torchlight Infinite videos in the past to see what's going on with that. Yeah, hopefully this video helps you out. We'll see you again soon. Sorry for rambling a little bit. I've been kind of struggling to try and get all the words out with this. But yeah, hope you guys have a good one. We'll see you again soon and come by the stream.